So is this the weekend? The weekend that someone other than Red Bull finally wins a race this season. We're all worried that Red Bull's going to win every race, unless obviously you're a Max Verstappen fan, and then you'll be happy that he's winning most of the races at the moment. But I believe that they won't win every race. It's never been done in history before. Obviously McLaren in 1988, they nearly done it. They won 15 of the 16 races back then, and they nearly went the whole season winning every race. And they tried to do it in 89, but they lost a race quite early on in that season. But for Red Bull to do it, it'll be just, one, it'll be amazing, but two, I just can't see them do it. Every year there's a crazy race. There's that race where just someone random wins a race. So you got the Gasly win that race, or we got Esteban Ocon when he won a race. And then obviously even last year, when you look at the second half of the season, when Red Bull went on a massive run and have won so many races, we still had George Russell winning the Brazilian Grand Prix in between it all. So I don't think they'll do the whole season. I don't think it's possible for them to win every race. But I do think they're going to win a lot of the races. Don't get me wrong. They're going to win so many races that it's just going to be one or two races that we get other teams on top. But when is that crazy race going to come? I thought it might have been in Baku, might have been in Monaco, but I think now Montreal has a history of producing some crazy races, some exciting races, and I think we're due a race that's going to be exciting on the level of like Australia was this year, where it's a bit crazy and there's like safety cars, red flags, people going off at the first corner, and B, yeah, just a bit bonkers with a different winner. Weird positions. Montreal is a track that it's not like a standard street track, and it's not a standard circuit. It's a bit like Melbourne. It's got tight walls, so there's the potential for safety cars, potential for cars to, when they go off, instead of just running wide and then coming back on, you run wide and you hit a wall. It's got the Wall of Champions, which is called that because the world champions have hit that wall. So many world champions. You got Damon Hill, you got Villeneuve, you got Schumacher, the great Schumacher. Jenson Button's hit that wall. Who else has hit the wall? Vettel's hit the wall, so you got the world champions. Is Max Verstappen going to hit the wall? You never know. Lewis Hamilton, I don't think, has hit that wall yet. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Mercedes' update, if it was the update that made them do so well in Barcelona. Like, you need to be careful with thinking that it was the update, because you got to remember on Friday practice, when they're doing the practice sessions, they weren't really there. Admittedly, Hamilton wasn't happy with the setup. And then it all just came together on Sunday, but there was lower temperatures on the Sunday, which was like 10 degrees lower than the Friday. So was it the tyres getting into the window? And then people were saying that Aston Martins have fallen back. But another thing you have to remember about Barcelona, it was a front limited track, whereas most of the tracks before that were rear limited. And Aston Martin are better on rear limited tracks. And we're coming up to Montreal, which goes back to a rear limited track. And if you're not sure what front limited and rear limited means, front limited is a track that's causing a lot of pressure on the front tyres. So those are normally like fast tracks, fast sweeping corners, which add loads and pressure on the front tyres so that they go off wear quicker than the rear. Whereas a rear limited track is a track that has corners that are like hard braking and then squirt on the accelerator, if that makes sense. So tight corners, and then squirting out the corner rather than long sweeping corners. So Montreal is a rear limited track. It's got lots of tight corners. It's got the hairpin, like obviously you brake hard, you go around and you hit the accelerator. That's a rear limited track. Whereas like Silverstone, Barcelona, you've got sweeping fast corners. So that's another reason why we need to look at the Mercedes, look at Aston Martin, see where they are together, to see if it was just a one-off or it was actually the Mercedes upgrade. And talking of upgrades, Aston Martin have bringing a significant upgrade to this race. So obviously if you think at the last race that brought updates to the front wing and the rear wing, and they're calling this one a big update. So obviously just by reading in between the lines you can work out that the update is going to be on the floor. And as you know, these new generation of cars, the floor is where you get the most speed. So we'll see if this is the update, the big update that they've been working on. Obviously you got to remember that Aston Martin have had such a long period of time with extra wind tunnel time, which they lose at the end of this month. So we've been waiting for that update with this extra time to finally hit the car, and we shall see if it is a significant improvement to the car. Because even though Ferrari, Mercedes and Aston Martin bringing little updates, even Alpine have brought updates, even though all these teams are bringing updates, the gap to the front at the last race was still 24 seconds. Verstappen still won by 24 seconds and is winning with large margins. So these updates are not really getting them closer to Red Bull as much as we hoped they would, to make the season even more entertaining. Not that I'm saying it's a boring season, but we do we want a race at the front. Unless you're a Max Verstappen fan. I think the only way someone is going to win is by, well, this early part of the season, the only way they're going to win is by Verstappen having an issue. They're not going to win head to head. Maybe later on in the year when Red Bull do two things. One, we catch up with this development time, because obviously even though the extra development time that people are getting in the wind tunnel, there's still the knock-on effect will still be a few months later. So we've still got 2 or 3 months for that to catch up, and we'll see how it all converges on the track. And then at the same point, Red Bull are going to be so far in front that they're going to turn their heads and start looking to next year's car early. So that means they'll be happy to sacrifice some speed this year, because they've pretty much got it in the bag anyway, and then they'll be focusing on next year. So when it comes to later part of the season, I believe 1 or 2 teams, either Mercedes or hopefully, for me as a Fernando Alonso fan, hopefully Aston Martin will be there at the front at the end of the year for just one, I'll be happy with just one Fernando Alonso win. I make videos for newcomers to Formula 1, as well as that I do previews and reviews of races. If that is something that interests you, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching and enjoy the race.